Story 1. A man gave me his old family videos. After watching them, I understand why he was so desperate to get rid of them. My job is trash. I don't mean that in a metaphorical, I hate my career, kind of way. I mean it literally. I'm a garbage collector. My alarm goes off at 4 a.m., I pull on steel-toed boots, and I spend the next 8 hours picking up the things people don't want anymore and tossing them into the back of a growling truck. It's a dirty, smelly, physically demanding job, but it pays the bills for my tiny apartment, and it's honest work. You also learn a lot about people from what they throw away. Most of the time, it's just bags of everyday trash. But sometimes you find treasures. A broken piece of furniture that can be fixed. A box of old books. People get rid of the strangest things. My rule is that if it's in a box and set out separately, it's fair game to take a look. That's how I ended up with the tapes. It happened a few weeks ago. I was on my usual route through a quiet, older suburban neighborhood. One of the residents, a man probably in his late 20s, flagged me down. He looked terrible. His eyes were wide and bloodshot, with dark, bruised-looking circles under them, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His hands were trembling. "Hey," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "You're the garbage guy, right? Can you just take this for me? Just get it out of my house. Please." He shoved a heavy cardboard box into my hands. It was sealed with a single, hasty strip of packing tape. "Sure thing, man," I said. "Just leave it on the curb next time." "No," he said, his eyes darting around nervously. "I need it gone. Now." He didn't wait for a reply. He just turned and practically ran back into his house, slamming the door behind him. I shrugged, tossed the box into the cab of my truck to look through later, and continued my route. That night, back in my apartment, I finally opened the box. It was heavy. Inside, packed neatly, were at least 50 old home video cassettes. The kind we all used in the 90s. Big, clunky black rectangles. None of them had labels. They were completely anonymous. I'm not gonna lie, my first thought was a little voyeuristic. Who knew what could be on these? Maybe something weird, something interesting. It was a window into a stranger's life. Anything was better than the usual mindless cable TV. I had an old VCR/TV combo I'd picked up from a thrift store, so I pulled it out, brushed off the dust, and popped in the first tape. The screen flickered to life with a burst of static, then resolved into a shaky, oversaturated home video. It was a kid's birthday party. A backyard, a bunch of screaming children, a cake with cartoon characters on it. The timestamp in the corner said 1998. Watching it, I got a strange sense of secondhand nostalgia. The clothes, the music, the quality of the video itself, it was a time capsule. And I recognized one of the kids. A small, skinny boy with a goofy grin. It was the man who had given me the box. The next few tapes were more of the same. Christmas mornings, with piles of wrapping paper everywhere. Awkward family vacations to the beach, the camera panning shakily across sunburnt faces. I watched him grow up on those tapes, from a little kid to a lanky teenager. It was strangely intimate, watching these moments that were never meant for my eyes. It was all so normal. Boring, even. I was about to give up and just toss the whole box. That's when I put in the tape of the barbecue. The timestamp said July 2002. The scene was familiar. A sunny backyard, adults chatting over drinks, kids running through a sprinkler. The man from the tapes, now a teenager, was trying to flip burgers on a grill, clearly struggling. It was another slice of everyday life. I was half watching, half scrolling on my phone. And then the video glitched. The screen dissolved into a sudden burst of static, a loud burst of noise coming through the speakers. It lasted only a second. When the picture returned, the scene looked the same. The burgers were still burning, the kids were still squealing with laughter. But something was different. In the background, hanging from the thick branches of a large oak tree, there was a shadow. It hadn't been there before the glitch. I rewound the tape and watched it again. Normal scene. A sharp burst of noise. Glitch. And there it was. A dark, shapeless figure, like a smudge on the lens, but with a distinct, unsettling form. It looked tentacled. Like a squid or an octopus made of pure darkness, just hanging there among the leaves. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart beating a little faster. It was probably nothing. A film artifact. A bit of the tape degrading in a strange way. That had to be it. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine, and let the tape play out. The shadow never moved. It was just there, a silent, impossible witness in a happy family memory. I put in the next tape. A Christmas morning from 2004. The family was in their living room, unwrapping presents. The teenage boy, the man, was showing off a new video game console. It was all laughter and joy. I was watching closely now, waiting. A sharp burst of noise. The glitch. The static. The picture returned. And my blood ran cold. It was there again. The thing. But it wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the house. For a few frames, just a fraction of a second, I saw it standing in the dark hallway that led out of the living room. It was clearer this time. It had depth, a three-dimensional quality. It wasn't a flat shadow. It was a thing. A tall, spindly, dark figure with long, thin limbs that coiled and shifted like they had no bones. It was just standing there, in the shadows of the hallway, watching the family celebrate. I rewound it and played it in slow motion. Before the glitch, the hallway was empty. After the glitch, the creature was there. It wasn't part of the original recording. The glitch wasn't revealing something that was always there. The glitch was adding it. It was inserting this, observer, into the memory. That's when the obsession began. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but watching those tapes. I called in sick to work. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I sat in my dark apartment, the only light coming from the flickering screen of the old TV, and I watched. Every single tape was the same. A normal family event. A wedding. A graduation. A trip to a theme park. And in every single one, the glitch would happen. And every single time, the thing would be there. And it was getting closer. On a tape of a visit to the zoo, it was a dark shape behind the glass of the reptile house. On a tape of a school play, it was a tall, thin figure standing just behind the curtain at the edge of the stage. With each appearance, it became more defined. The vague, octopus-like shadow took on a distinct silhouette. The shape grew limbs, a torso, a head. It was impossibly tall and thin, its limbs too long, its joints bending at strange angles. It was like a spider and a man had been melted together in the dark. It never moved. It never interacted with the family. It just watched. A silent, unwelcome passenger on their memories. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I just seeing things? Was the man who gave me the tape some kind of strange indie filmmaker making found footage horror? But it all felt too real. The family, their lives, it was authentic. The creature was the only thing that felt wrong. I got to the last tape in the box. It was older than the others, and the quality was much worse. The timestamp read 1995. The tape began in a sterile, white hospital room. A tired-looking woman lay in a hospital bed. A man, who I recognized as a younger version of the father from the other tapes, was holding a small, swaddled bundle. It was the birth. The birth of the man who had given me the box. His first moments of life, captured on grainy magnetic tape. I braced myself. I stared at the screen, my knuckles white, waiting for the inevitable glitch. Waiting to see where the creature would appear this time. In the corner of the room? In the reflection of a window? But the tape played on. The baby cried. The mother smiled, exhausted but happy. The father cooed softly. The camera zoomed in on the baby's tiny, wrinkled face. It played perfectly, from start to finish. No glitches. No static. No creature. The tape ended, the screen dissolving into a blank, blue void. A wave of immense, shuddering relief washed over me. I laughed, a choked, shaky sound. It was over. The last tape was clean. It was just a strange, recurring flaw in the other tapes. A magnetic anomaly. My brain had filled in the blanks, created a monster out of nothing. I was an idiot. A sleep-deprived, paranoid idiot. I leaned forward and turned off the VCR. The TV screen went black. And I saw it. It wasn't in a reflection. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was in the room with me. The darkness behind the television, in the corner where the shadows were deepest, was wrong. It was a patch of absolute black, a void that seemed to swallow the faint light from the street lamp outside. And from that void, 2 points of light appeared. 2 giant, crimson, self-luminous eyes. They weren't looking at the TV. They were looking straight at me. I could see its shape now, fully formed, no longer just a grainy image on a screen. It was pressed against the wall and the ceiling, its long, spindly limbs spread out like some nightmarish spider. Its body was a shifting mass of shadows, but those eyes were solid and real and filled with an ancient, terrifying awareness. I don't think I screamed. I think the sound was trapped in my throat, a solid ball of pure terror. I scrambled backward, falling out of my chair, and crab-walked across the floor until my back hit the opposite wall. I fumbled for the lamp on my end table, my fingers feeling like useless, clumsy sticks. I found the switch and flicked it on. The room flooded with light. The corner was empty. The TV was just a TV. The shadows were just shadows. It was gone. But it had been there. I knew it. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my lit kitchen, clutching a kitchen knife, jumping at every creak and groan of the old building. Sleep was a place I could no longer reach. The next morning, driven by a desperate need for answers, I decided to go back to the man's house. I had to know. I had to ask him what he'd passed on to me. I gathered up the tapes, put them back in their box, and drove over to his neighborhood. When I pulled onto his street, I saw the police cars. Yellow tape was wrapped around his house. My heart sank into my stomach. I parked down the street and walked closer, trying to look like just another curious neighbor. A small group of actual neighbors were gathered on the sidewalk, speaking in hushed, uneasy tones. "Just found him this morning," an elderly woman was saying. "Terrible. So young." "What happened?" another neighbor asked. The woman lowered her voice, but I was close enough to hear. "They're not saying much. But my cousin's son is one of the officers on scene. He said it was the strangest thing he's ever seen. The man was just sitting in his chair. No signs of a struggle. But something was wrong with his head. And something inside him was just gone." I didn't hear anything else. The words hit me like a physical blow. The thought of what had been taken from him made the world tilt around me. I turned and stumbled back to my car, the box of tapes feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I got home, my mind a blank roar of static. I needed to get rid of them. Burn them. Throw them in a river. I brought the box inside, and as I was about to dump the contents into a trash bag, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper at the very bottom, hidden beneath the last cassette. I hadn't noticed it before. It was a small, folded note. The handwriting was shaky, erratic, the writing of a man on the edge of total collapse. I unfolded it. It only had a few words. "I am sorry." It promised me it would leave me alone. And in that moment, I understood everything. He passed it to me. And now I don't know what to do. Do I live with this thing, this silent observer, waiting for it to get hungry? Or do I find another person, another stranger, and hand them a box of old tapes? Do I save myself by passing it on, just like he did? But it hadn't saved him. The creature had lied. It had moved on to me, and then it had gone back to collect its final payment from him. Maybe that's what it feeds on, minds. I don't know. All I know is that I'm so tired. But I'm terrified to go to sleep. Story 2. We found an extra hand in our family photos. I paid to get professional photos done of my kids. They follow some weird variant of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, only one of them is ever smiling at once. I thought maybe it was time to bring a professional in and finally stop having to Photoshop different heads on the kids for our Christmas cards. Everything went fine. We had a nice outdoor session at the edge of the woods. My son and daughter hugged each other, smiled, posed, the works. Everything was fine. Until I got the photos back. As I looked at them, I noticed something. "Hey, Frank," I said, "doesn't it look like there are two hands there?" He leaned over the computer. "Well, yeah. That one's Isabella's, and that one's Jack's." "No, Jack's hand is over there." I pointed. He didn't put his arm around her. He refused. Remember? But it was obvious. Isabella was putting her hand up to her shoulder, and there was a hand underneath her hand, even though Jack's hand was clearly hanging at his side. "I guess she made a mistake," Frank said. "She was probably trying to place Jack's hand around Isabella, but then forgot to edit his real hand out." I frowned. I wish she'd told us before she did that. It looks kind of weird. The hand under my daughter's didn't really look like a child's hand at all. It was too big. Just where was this woman getting her stock images? I continued flipping through the album. I stopped to linger on a photo where Jack had, finally, wrapped his arms around Isabella. She wrapped her arms around him, too, and they were both looking at the camera. Perfect picture. Except there was an extra hand on top of Jack's. Just two fingers, resting over his. I wouldn't have even noticed it if I hadn't seen the first hand. I called Frank over again. He started to laugh. "Well, I guess she's using AI." I don't think so," I said. "I mean, those are Isabella and Jack. How would AI make that?" "No, there are things with AI now, where you can upload a photo and tell it to do things. Like, make it a profile picture, or remove the background. And it often changes things even when you tell it not to." "That's a big privacy concern," I said, my heart starting to pound. "I don't want their pictures in some system." I called her up. I probably should have given her the benefit of the doubt, but I was so upset by that point that I just raised my voice. "You have no right to upload our photos into some AI, I told her. She sounded near the point of tears. "I didn't do it. I swear. Please don't write a review." Then she paused. "Wait, I'll prove it to you." The photographer, Janice, came over an hour later. She showed us the original files on the computer and their metadata. She showed them on her camera's screen. In the originals, I saw the extra hand under Isabella's, the extra fingers over Jack's. She could be faking it. But she seemed so sincere. When Janice left, I felt even more confused. I flipped through the photos again, staring at the extra hands. They had to be AI. They had to. We finally put the kids to bed. Frank and I sat in front of the TV trying to relax. "It's just so weird," I said, unable to let it go. "I know." An hour later I went up to check on the kids. And froze. Isabella was, as usual, sprawled across her bed in her usual chaotic fashion, her hand hanging over the edge of the mattress. Coming up from under the bed, there was another hand. Holding hers. I gasped and flicked on the light. There was nothing there. Frank came running. I told him about it, and he burst out laughing. "You're going to start having nightmares about these things," he chuckled as he got on his knees and checked under the bed. Then the closet, then Jack's closet and bed. There was nothing there, of course. Nothing at all. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept checking on the kids. I couldn't stop thinking about hands. Hands reaching out from hidden corners. Hands attached to someone breaking in. Hands attached to nothing at all, crawling across the floor like spiders. I finally fell asleep. But I woke up with a start at 3 a.m. As I shook off the fog of sleep, the first thing I noticed was that Frank was holding my hand. Something he never did while we slept. I turned over, back and forth, and it took me a second to realize that the hand attached to mine wasn't attached to Frank at all. I let out a cry, and the thing seemed to slip away into the shadows of the covers. We checked everywhere. Every corner. There was nothing in our room, nothing in the house. But my own hand was pulsing with pain, and 5 bright red scratches were across my palm, stinging badly. "I can't do this," I whispered, holding back tears. "I can't." My hand felt tingly and numb. As we waited for police to show up, I scrolled through my phone and checked all the security camera footage. No one had entered or left. There was nothing there. Except, I noticed the footage at our front door from the previous day, when the 4 of us had gotten home from the park. There was a hand on my shoulder. But Frank didn't have his arm around me. Did you enjoy the fear? Prove it. Like and subscribe before it finds you.